Happy Sunday, everyone. Here I am with our Vitamin Joy Tarot reading. All right, let's jump into it. So, for those of you who don't know, I have recently released a tarot deck. I call it the Vitamin Joy Tarot. I'm a big believer in vitamin joy. Don't want to beat a dead horse here, but this world that we're in will give us pain and turmoil and chaos and trauma and all that stuff without us asking. All of that stuff will cross our thresholds without us going to seek it. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have to go seek joy intentionally because that stuff doesn't cross our doorstep as much as the pain and trauma and turmoil and all of that. And just in the same way that, vitamin C just doesn't appear in our body, we need to go and actively seek vitamin C. So here I am encouraging you to go out and get joy like a vitamin. Don't feel guilty about it. See it as a necessary sustenance for your soul, your spirit, all of that good stuff. Now, the tarot deck, as you can see from the back of it, I designed to be very joyful, bright, colorful, very, very colorful as much as I could. And I'm going to shuffle this deck 5 times. I am not going to read like I have before in the past. So this is a new reading. It's going to be a 5-card reading. What it's going to be is it's going to show us where we're at collectively. As much as we can all say where we're at collectively, I'll get a card that represents us in the center. And then I'm going to go around clockwise, and I'm going to take a look at our body, our heart, our mind, our spirit. Because tarot has 4 suits, and those 4 suits correspond to the 4 elements. Those 4 elements correspond to the 4 parts of us. So the pentacles would be our body. The cups would be our heart. The air or the swords would be our mind. And the fire would be our spirit. So let's lean into it. So the first card that I'm going to pull after I cut the deck that represents where we're all at is the Ten of Wands. So in the Ten of Wands card, we always have this sense of labor, that we're all carrying a heavy burden. I think collectively, especially for those of us in the United States, we find ourselves divided with, people on the right and people on the left. Here's a funny thing that I just saw the other day. I try not to entrench myself in echo chambers, and I try not to judge people for their political or religious beliefs. Because I genuinely feel that most people are doing the best they can with what they have. Some of us don't have a lot. And a woman popped through my social media feed as a Republican, lifelong Republican. And she posted these pictures of Florida GOP members. And they're like the Republicans in Florida are selling alligator Alcatraz merchandise. And that was the thing for her that crossed the line. The most unchristian thing, the heinous, and these were her words. And that was her threshold. Now, ever since the 2-party system came about in America, we've all been divided. Democrats versus Republicans, conservatives versus liberals, on and on and on. And I try not to participate in that because I know that there's a bigger kind of story at play there. The more you can divide people against one another, the more bigger systems and, organizations can get away with shit. So let's, look at both sides of that political divide. Everybody's carrying a lot. We can look at people outside of politics, people in the local community here. For instance, I'm a Vermonter. Vermont had a hotel voucher program, and what just happened last week is the money ran out. They stopped the voucher program. They kicked a whole bunch of families out of hotels, and 300 children in Vermont went homeless. There are now 300 more kids out on the street living in tents than there were the week prior to that. There's no good answer to this. Do you know what I mean? Like, taxes and money and spending and all of that. But, it's funny that I also hear about this news while also watching Jeff Bezos the owner of Amazon, being married in Venice, and to know that that man makes like $4,000 a second. It's hard to hear how 300 kids went homeless in the state of Vermont. Now, suffering, that's always been the way of the world. On one side of the world, you have people taking craps in gold toilets. On the other side of the world, you have people digging food out of dumpsters. And I guess it's always been that way. It's hard to hold. And that's what the Ten of Wands talks about. The Ten of Wands talks about carrying a burden, and carrying a burden that's so heavy that we don't see the reality. So we're all overburdened. Yet this card has a positive spin to me, because it is where there's a will, there's a way. And I know that there's a will for us to get collectively through what is challenging us, whether we're being challenged on the left or the right. I will say, and I'll take this opportunity to remind you, that if you have come to hate your neighbor because of their political beliefs, if you have come to hate your neighbor because they're Republican or Democrat, you have been manipulated. And one day you will die. And one day you will look back on the big game that you participated in and how you were bamboozled. Heavy, right? So, Ten of Wands is a heavy card. And I'm trying to bring joy here to us. So let me lean into the card that should give us medicine or guidance for our body. The Wheel of Fortune. Okay. Well, I'm just going to say it for how it is. Maybe we need to go for a drive. I love my little version of the Wheel of Fortune. But I think that it would be appropriate for us to go for a drive, to move. And I think to tell our body and our physical selves that what goes up must come down. The fact that alligator Alcatraz is a thing, and the fact that there are a certain subset of humans out there finding glee in imprisoning people and torturing them and starving them and doing whatever's going to happen there. What goes up must come down. And I think that it's a good reminder for us that if they don't see the error of their ways in this world, they will see it in the next. I firmly believe that. All right. Let's take a look at what's joyful for our heart and our emotions. The Hanged Man, seeing things from a different perspective, trying to see things from a different perspective, trying to see things from a higher perspective. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of how I just did this for myself last night. So I have a 22-year-old son, great kid, great man. I call him a man because that's what he is. He's still very young though, and still learning. Over the past few months, he has been remodeling our bathroom. And I'll speak quite frankly, he has been dragging ass. Our house has been in a place of chaos and turmoil. Kid works full time. He's doing this on the, his part-time gigs, and he's doing this part-time. And last night, we come home to a mess, like sheetrock dust everywhere. Kid was putting in sheetrock and putting in a door and doing a lot for a 22-year-old. And both my husband and I have kind of gotten to the point of it where we're like, enough already. We need this to stop. we need something to move on. We remind ourselves that he's a 22-year-old kid. And so last night at 11:30 at night, I am sweeping up sheetrock dust in my kitchen, seeing it all over everything, nails, screws, the kid did a bunch of worked late and then just took off. But as I was sweeping up and trying to mind my emotions, what I was doing to myself is that I was like, wow, I have a home. You know what I mean? I have a child, I have a husband, I have a home. You know how many people would wish that they could sweep up sheetrock dust on the floor? A lot. So that was my that was my hanged man moment, where I flipped myself upside down, looked at things from a different perspective, and found peace through that. So I'm going to give that to you. You know, what can you be grateful for? And I guess, you know, the perspective, I guess, with the hanged man for us in this particular moment is this: comparison can be a thief of joy. Like, I can compare my situation. I can compare my situation of, you know, sheetrock dust on the floor, detritus, construction debris in my house. If I compare that to somebody who doesn't have that, I would rob myself of joy. But if I compared myself to people who don't have a house, or those families that, you know, were booted out of motels and now their kids are homeless, I should just shut up. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think it's important where we compare our scenarios to the right circumstance, and we find joy in that way. We'll find enlightenment, and that's what the hanged man brings us. Let's talk about our mind. What brings us joy for our mind? The Two of Wands. Let's plan for the future. You know, this is a card of like, what do you want out of the world? What does the world want out of you? I sat with a woman last night, or yesterday, in a reading, and her spirits were very much like, we know that you're going through a lot right now, but it's all going to be over soon. And what next? What next? So let's take that bathroom circumstance. I even roll my eyes at it. Let's take that bathroom circumstance for me as my example to share with you. Yeah, one day it's going to be all done. He's going to have everything fixed. And the sheetrock dust can be swept up, mopped up, all of that stuff. There is an end game to it. And I think that no matter what you're going through in your personal life, in your family, in the society around you with political stuff, we have to hope for a better future. Because the way that we walk through today is how we end up creating that better future tomorrow. For instance, I was upset at my kid last night for coming home to a bunch of construction debris, because I'm like, it's been months. And I could have come down on him hard and been like, kid, you left a mess, blah, 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 blah. But I didn't. What I chose to do is I chose to say, hey, you know, the sheetrock and the door, you know, all looks good, my man. It's looking good. Thank you for your help. I could have chosen to come down on him hard and been pissed off about what I didn't have, or I could share with him my gratitude about what I did have. And that's how I create a better future. Because if I would come down on him in a text message, that's going to create further resentment and anger and heartache and hardship between us. Or I could just be grateful for what I have and change the future in that way. Let's take a look at the card that represents what our spirit wants. Ace of Wands. So we go from the Two of Wands to the Ace of Wands. Okay. So this is a big fiery energy. This is, you know, the magic and beginnings and new beginnings. You know, every day is a new beginning. And I don't want to sound hokey here, but I think it's appropriate to say that you can't control what happens to you. You can only control how you react to it. So with my crappy bathroom situation and sheetrock dust everywhere and like, rah, I can only do a limited amount to manipulate that scenario, but I can change how I react to it. So let's say that you are upset about alligator Alcatraz, because, you know, if I think I'll put this kindly, if you are somebody that finds glee in the imprisonment of humans unnecessarily, like, they're not criminals. Like, you can watch like what's going on with ICE and immigration and bounty hunters and quotas and taking moms out of courts who are trying to become legal and leaving their kids. If you take glee in that, you can fuck off. I literally don't want anything to do with you. I don't care about you, and I hope that you get what you voted for, which you might. There are a certain subset of people out there who will find glee in the harm and imprisonment of other people, of brown people, of people of color. And if you're one of those people, well, all I can say is that one day you're going to die, and you're going to look back on the miserable life you led, and you will know pain and suffering. You will. But I don't imagine that if you've watched this far, you're somebody who would take glee in those things. You might actually suffer from them. And I will remind you in this moment that hate consumes itself. When you take a political party that is based on hatred, hate will always consume itself like a cancer. You take, let's take this to the extreme. One of Donald Trump's top advisors, Laura Loomer, talked about how she was excited for people to be eaten by alligators, 65 million of them, and there's 65 million Latino people in this country. She was legitimately speaking about 65 million people being eaten by alligators. One day, if those people run out of the bad person or the person that they're prejudiced against, they will consume themselves. They will go after one another, and hatred always burns out because it's not sustainable. And if you're a person that is horrified and offended by what's going on in the United States, I will encourage you to see and remember how hatred always burns out and consumes itself. It always will. It's not sustainable. So, all my love to you. It is a strange, peculiar world. We just went through the 4th of July. It's hard for a lot of people to find pride in their country. But I'll leave you with this. I love America. I love the people of America. Where else really could I do what I do? So I do love the country that I live in. And for the past 30 years, I've taken issue with the government of America. So I'll leave you with that. Try to find pride and try to find perspective and try to find love. Remember that hatred will always consume itself and always burn itself out. But outside of that, get your joy. Go for a drive. Remind your body, remind your heart, remind your soul that these things are temporary. Look to the future. Look for a brighter future. Remember how you react today creates the future that you walk into tomorrow. And I will encourage you to see that and do that. So thank you for being here. It's a long reading, I know, but I feel it's appropriate. And remember, you can get a reading from me. You can find the Vitamin Joy Tarot deck on my website, books, podcast. I have a podcast episode coming up this Tuesday at 7 p.m. You can join it, free online spirit gallery. You can find all of that on my website at joshsimons.com. I'll see you next time.